As I came back to ITRON, two things were very clear to me. First, we had lost our swagger as an organization. Simply put, we were not feeling very good about the prospects for ITRON. Second, as an organization, we were not working well together at all. Teamwork was a concept, not a reality. The restructuring of the organization into global operations made coordination even more difficult. So the question I asked myself was, how do I get this organization moving forward and working together so that collectively we can feel good about ITRON, the work we do, and regain center stage in the industry? Sometimes things just come together. At the time I was pondering this question, Chris Major of the Human Potential Project showed up in my office and we began discussing HP2, commitment-based management, and competing for the future. The beginning of the program in Austin was an interesting study in contrasts. In the very first gathering, there was a lot of apprehension. You could feel it and you could see it on the faces of the 220 ITRON people who were selected to participate in the program. You could almost hear the thoughts racing through their minds. What is this all about? I need to be doing something else. This won't last.
All the uncertainty of everybody showing up not knowing the decoder ring.
Curious. I'm curious. I just want to know.
I don't know a lot of what to expect.
By the end of the week, it was a whole lot of wow and excitement, because there was a certain realization that good could come of this. And most, if not all, of the 220 wanted to be part of it. For me, it was confirmation that the attendees knew that something needed to be done, and they believed HP2 could be it.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It's one of the best experiences of my life.
It was very, very amazing.
It was an incredible experience. I can't tell you, the only word I can say is wow.
So our job has been to help you put in place the thinking, the practices, the processes that enable you to consistently reinvent yourselves on the run so that you can be the ones who design the future and not be at the effect of it like everybody else is. ITRON's been engaged in a very robust process. We started off laying down what we call universal performance principles, which is the foundation for everything that we do. So everybody got the work on accountability, integrity, honesty, trust, etc. And then we began to build. Right? Once we get that, then we can move. So they started off with the basics about coordination. So we call what we call the dance of coordination. So they learned how to make requests. They learned how to make offers, promises, and then we cobbled that together into what we saw as the action cycle. That then became, how do you cobble action cycles together into projects? So what did we learn about designing and managing projects? We taught them a whole process for doing project reviews. We then introduced a new set of practices for having meetings, you know, the bane of all businesses everywhere. So we learned how to get meetings together that actually people like to go to, they produce results, they're happy to go to. Then we began to work on a little broader work, all right? So now that you can effectively coordinate with each other, let's learn how we put together teams. Well, what does it take to put together teams? We have to have practices for building trust. We have to know how to declare a vision and a mission. We have to set down standards for how we're going to interact and measure our success. Then we can look at the phenomenon of managing moods. Right? From there, we can begin to look at bigger stuff in the organization. So how do you design a strategy? How do you get ownership for that strategy throughout the organization? What does it really take to generate innovation? And lastly, we're going to look at the whole phenomenon of leadership. What does that not only mean, but more importantly, how do you do it? And you put all that together, and the folks that come out the other end of this, you wouldn't recognize them from the same people that started 9 months ago. At the individual level, a whole series of changes have taken place. Right? We lay down universal performance principles, and they just grabbed onto them. So you've got people who are much more willing to be accountable for everything. They're making clear choices. They're making commitments that mean something. Right? There's a much higher level of trust. And we've really brought meaning to this term about integrity throughout the organization. And people have gotten much more rigorous with themselves and each other in all these things. Then on top of that, then you start building the new competencies. So they've become more effective as team leaders. They've become more effective as communicators, as coordinators. And you're watching, I think, we're not going to claim direct credit for this, but there's been some pretty robust results in terms of selling out in the marketplace.
It was clear from the beginning that people were really taking HP2 seriously and getting a lot out of it. I was getting emails from all over the world, and people would stop me in the hall and thank me for the opportunity to be part of this exciting transformation. It was very gratifying to see the high level of enthusiasm, and it was nice to know that we were doing the right thing.
Today are what we call coordination workers. Right? They're educated, they're agile, they're mobile, they're problem solvers, they're innovators. They're not working out of survival like the early industrial era folks were. They generate value not by making things, but by their effective coordinations with each other to satisfy customers, which in turn produces value for the enterprise. These people require a completely different way of being interacted with, and it's what we call commitment-based management. And the fundamental of it is very simple. What's a commitment? I promise to do X by time Y. On the face of it, it couldn't be simpler, and yet every day we find people don't know how to manage those things rigorously. So what we've done is create a whole methodology around that basic little building block that scales all the way down to an interaction between me and you, and all the way up to a corporate strategy. And when you learn the practices and how to see the world that way, everything changes. Because suddenly now, I'm not a manager of activities, I'm a manager of commitments. And that's a very different way of being. The two-step. They love it, they hate it, all at the same time. The two-step is a very simple little somatic movement, right, which when you look at it, it doesn't look like any big thing. And when you do it, and if you do it well, you begin to realize that this is one simple movement where literally every muscle in your body gets activated, that simple little pivot maneuver. And the reason that we do it is A, because it's simple, and at the same time, it's infinitely complex. And if you can discipline yourself to keep your attention inward and begin to notice what muscles are working, which ones aren't, where's my balance, where's my weight, where's my breath, you can spend decades trying to hit the perfect two-step and never do it. And that's the challenge, is can you discipline yourself to simply have the practice of doing it just for the sake of doing it. Why have we done Rondori? Well, mostly it's fun to watch, but there is nothing that we've found that simulates life better, more effectively than Rondori. There is always, always something coming at you. So that's the real day-to-day life that we all live. There's phone calls, there's meetings, there's customers, there's people in the organization. There's always some incoming. And the question is not, how do I stop that? You don't want to stop it. It's how do I learn to deal with it from center, being graceful, being effective. And Rondori is the ultimate practice in which you learn how to do that. Yeah, the program did have a very special close. And as you saw in being there, the intent here was real simple. We've been working for 9 months on building management practices, on building leadership practices, expanding who these people are to be more effective in the business world. And we don't ever want to let them lose touch of the underlying humanity that's involved in all this. So the last little event was all about reminding them about that. And all you have to do is look at their faces to know that it didn't take much reminding.
So where are we? First of all, I truly believe that HP2 has exceeded all of my expectations, and I've said this to our board many times. This program works. People all over the organization are using it every day to make their work and the organization more efficient and effective. Teamwork, around the globe is at a higher level than I have ever seen. Across the organization, we're using a new common language of communication and coordination. And quite nicely, it's spreading beyond the original 220 to all corners of the organization. I am confident that HP2 will hold and expand throughout the company in both formal and informal programs. We have achieved what I set out to achieve. The swagger is back, the teamwork is once again growing, and my two-step is improving.
HP2 was an amazing process for me, and I think for all of the people who participated in the program. I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to talk about the concepts that really meant the most to me, and then finish up by talking about how this program is going to carry forward for ITRON in the next year. I want to thank all of the participants for the countless hours that they put in traveling and working together, conference calls at late hours of the night and early mornings, the sacrifices that all of you made in your personal lives in order to work on your program learning teams. But that investment in collaboration is going to be invaluable for us moving forward, because as a global company, we have such tremendous resources, and we have the ability to harness that power to drive ITRON forward. One of the most important concepts that we worked on in the Human Potential Project is commitment-based management. How do we manage commitments instead of managing activities? And at the heart of commitment-based management is knowing and trusting the people with whom we are working. We made so much progress in the past year in getting to know one another better, getting to know our competencies, and getting to understand how to really design a much more effective management process. Managing commitments instead of activities reduces the level of detail that we need to use to manage the company. It allows us to trust our employees and to get a much higher level of productivity out of the groups that we charter. And I intend to move forward with these principles very strongly. Many of you have asked what's next. As we work to move HP2 forward in 2013, I ask each of you, as the leaders of ITRON, to live what you have learned over the past year, to embody the principles of HP2 as the most powerful way that we can teach the rest of the company the valuable lessons that we have shared over the past year. And it is that process that we will use to reinvent our company to define an even stronger future.